Hi there, welcome to Writing on Air, episode number 28. In today's episode, I'm going to do something a little different. I've been writing Hard Vacuum 2 up until now this week, and just looking at new Hangout things. Sorry. So I've been writing Hard Vacuum 2, and I've burnt myself out a little bit on it. I've gotten a little, not bored so much as just I've been in that world a bit too much, maybe, this week. So I've written about 35,000 words on it. So it's within 15 or 20,000 words of being finished anyway, I think, which is Friday and Saturday's job, is to finish that. So I thought that today, since I use Asana for planning, and I have a bunch of tasks that are due in the next day or two or three. So I figure I might take today and clear all of them up, since they're not major time sinks. Finish them in hopefully today, and then tomorrow and Saturday I'll do Hard Vacuum 2 and finish that. So the first of those tasks is Shiny Iron Curtain, which is the sequel to my novel from last year, Shiny New Swindle. And Shiny New Swindle was originally meant to be a one-off book, but in the meantime I found that well, the first thing was, when I finished writing Shiny New Swindle, I left in a little bit of an open end. By the way, there'll be major spoilers now for Shiny New Swindle and Shiny Iron Curtain. So if you do want to read them, you might want to turn off now. So I left in a bit of a hook there that I could get the sequel into, which is that Chris is offered a job with the police, and the bad guy in Shiny New Swindle escapes. So then the sequel has been kind of percolating for a while. So when I was writing Shiny New Swindle, originally the idea was that everyone has brain implants, and if everyone has brain implants, then people are going to try and hack into them. So in Shiny New Swindle, the original was that a bunch of teenage hackers who love zombie movies, that those teenage hackers would want to recreate a zombie apocalypse. So a real zombie apocalypse can't happen. It's just a magic system, essentially. I mean, zombies would have rigor mortis, so they couldn't move. They wouldn't be able to sustain themselves. Their muscles would seize up. And it just makes no sense. They're not breathing or digesting or anything. So it's magic, basically, that's making zombies exist. However, if everyone has brain implants, you could kind of come up with a system to make people act like zombies without actually being zombies. So essentially, their brains are being overwritten to make them walk slowly and try and bite people and stuff. So that was the original plan, and then that evolved quite a long way to then being that if people can hack into implants, then they can kind of get superpowers. That in Shiny New Swindle, the main characters hack into people's brains and do different things. So Chris, who's the first-person main character, hacks in and makes himself invisible. So he just draws background over wherever he is. So you just see whatever is behind him, because as long as you saw it a second before, you just draw it over him. And the others do other things, like persuading you that whatever they say is true, or making you fall asleep, or when they hit you, that you feel like you've been hit by a train. So that's what happens in Shiny New Swindle. And then after I started planning that out, I was trying to still put the zombie stuff in, and it just was too much. It was too many ideas in one book, because the hacking and doing bank robbery thing is one component. The zombies are another. It was too much, too many new ideas in one book, was what I felt. So that left me with the hacking to make zombies in my back pocket. So when I then thought about writing a sequel to Shiny New Swindle, it made sense to take those zombies out and use them. However, now we have a strong bad guy. So the bad guy, Civil War, who's an artificial intelligence, creates this zombie thing instead. Only they're not real zombies like a Dawn of the Dead kind of zombie. They're a cyber zombie, I guess. I'm not sure what you call it. So they still need to sleep. They still need to eat and drink water, and but they're better coordinated than movie zombies, and they can, like, for instance, they could conceivably fire a gun or take cover or whatever. They wouldn't behave exactly like the Dawn of the Dead zombies, because Dawn of the Dead zombies are meant to be stupid, whereas these cyber zombies aren't stupid. They're just being controlled, and if the program is smart enough that's controlling them, like they're not using their brains at all. Like, I've said that they're conscious in there, but they're not able to control anything. It's the program that's controlling them. So if the program itself is smart enough, it can make them take cover if someone's shooting at them. It can make them shoot back. Stuff like that. So I've come up with a document over here with the initial Snowflake summary, which I created about a month or two ago. The idea being that I then leave it for a while and then reread it and see if it makes sense and what I can get out of it. So the next step I have after I do my Snowflake, if you haven't watched, I have a nitty-gritty of writing books video series where I explain all of these steps, but right here is what I'm going to do in this, however long it takes. Usually when I'm writing, I do half an hour chunks and two at a time. This I'm just going to see how long it goes for. So I'm going to read through this, and then I'm going to use my I use Dan Wells' 7-act structure, which is a way of creating satisfying arcs for characters and for the plot. And then I'm going to go from that and try and combine the Snowflake and the 7-act into a total outline that should give me a kind of a starting roadmap for moving on. So the first thing I'm going to do is read. So I'm not sure that'll be too thrilling, but see how it goes. I might say a few things as I'm going along. Actually, I'll just read it out loud. So, Chris and Erica have gone to work for the police in their anti-cybercrime division, which makes sense because they're hackers. Max and Haley, meanwhile, have joined forces with Daryl and Felicity to create a new way of hacking, or to try at least. So, yeah, that's actually said in the next line. The other members of Felicity's gang have given up their lives of crime and gone straight. They were in demand and took private sector jobs. So one comment I got on Shiny New Swindle was there was too many characters to keep track of. So what were the names? Evelyn, Aurora, and Zohar, who I actually liked as characters. I'm going to cut out of this one just to make it more streamlined. Chris considered that, but knew he needed some excitement in his life, which makes sense because that's the kind of guy he is. Chris is at the gun range. Erica comes to get him, and they go up to report to their division. So I considered having them in training, but a kind of thing from Shiny New Swindle was cutting as late as possible into the action. And whilst I can probably do some interesting things with training and stuff like that might be funny, I just want to cut straight to the zombies. Oh, someone's sending me something. Okay, I'll just check out. Terrell Etheridge said, "They are drones." I presume you mean, yeah, I guess the cyber zombies are kind of drones, in a way. Flesh drones. Yeah, so Chris is at the gun range, Erica comes to get him. So they're not in training, they're actually cops now. I have to look up how long it takes to be a cop, actually. How long take to be a cop? It depends. Okay, that's not a great answer. 2 years of college coursework towards a bachelor degree, and then 6 to 7 months in the academy. So forget the degree, I would guess, because they're qualified as, because they're hacker background. So we're talking about 7 months later, basically. So seven months after Shiny New Swindle. So there's reports throughout the NCP things are going wrong in the RCC. So thanks to Zane Dickens for that. We had a brainstorming meeting. So that's something I can mention as well. I'm part of a brainstorming group. And that reminded me actually that I haven't scheduled a brainstorming session for this week, which I better do. Oh, but I can't. Sorry, thinking on air. I should have called this one. I'm just going to share a message to my brainstorming group because I'm picking up my wife from the airport this Sunday, so I can't be at it. So the brainstorming group is a way. It's 5 authors total, and we get together every Sunday, and then people just say in the Google Plus group what they want to brainstorm. It can be anything at all. It can be marketing, it can be story ideas, anything that can be talked about in 10 or 15 minutes. And then we get together and we just talk about it, and we come up with better ideas than we'd be able to come up with alone. So, yeah, I'm just telling the guys then in the brainstorming group that I can't organize it this week. So normally I just call in a hangout on air like this one, except they're restricted to just the members of the group because some people might not want to have all their ideas shared around. It keeps switching back to me. The hangouts are glitchy somehow. So, no, that's not right. Google or the Hangout stuff is amazing that you can talk directly to YouTube, but it's a little glitchy sometimes. So yeah, Zane Dickens came up with that. Chris is assigned to check the links to all of the NCP border offices with bordering on the RCC. So NCP is the Nordic Cooperative Pact. It's most of Northern Europe, and actually the rest of Europe have kind of joined afterwards, but it's still called the NCP. So Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland are kind of in charge after the second financial crash, and then there's been wars and all kinds of things. And the RCC is Russia and China, the Russo-Chinese coalition. So Chris is assigned to check the links to the NCP border offices. So there's a long border between Russia and all of the European nations. Chris spots something strange. A bunch of RCC citizens are lined up staring at the border office. So that's the start of the zombies attacking. He switches to the next border station, sees the same thing, and the next one sees the same thing. He talks to Erica, and she says it must be civil war. So Chris hasn't told anyone that civil war got away through his fridge, so it's Chris's fault that the AI is still on the loose. In a way, I mean, the AI tricked him, but still. But he hasn't told anyone about that. I'm not sure if that's... Yeah, we'll see. This is only an outline, so it might not make entire sense. Like, if Chris is now a cop, whether he would have hidden the fact that a dangerous AI is still coming after them might be a bit debatable. They get to their boss, Agent Coxswain, who's furious that they didn't tell him. So I've made Coxswain head of the anti-cybercrime division, just because I'd like to have Coxswain come back. He wasn't a major character in the first book, but it's always better to have characters return rather than inventing new characters, in my opinion. Like the audience, the readers, want to see the same people come back mostly, and then introduce some new elements. So Coxswain is furious they didn't tell him. Erica says the weird things in the RCC must be civil war. Coxswain says they've been working on finding a link between civil war and the US to start sanctions. So the US has taken over Mexico and Canada and parts of Central America, and are essentially a dictatorship, like a corporatocracy, which they're not that far off at the moment, really. They're on their way there. Like, at the moment, because in America politics are essentially money elections, they're not popular elections anymore, and they've got such good propaganda, I can't see them pulling away from it unless there's a major change. I mean, I hope there's a major change, but at the moment people are just captured by the corporations and don't realize that rich people are paying a lower percentage of tax on their income than the poorest people. It's just ludicrous. But anyway, that's just me being a liberal socialist or whatever they'd say on Fox News. So they want to start sanctions on the US, which is, as I say, a corporatocracy. They look at the RCC zombies and wonder what they're doing. So they're all lined up in front of the border office, and there's more and more of them, and then there's like, I don't know, a few hundred, and they all start to move at once, and the zombies attack the outpost. So they have tools. They're not like Dawn of the Dead zombies. They actually have tools that they can use, so maybe pickaxes and shovels and whatever, and they attack the soldiers in the outpost. And these, like the RCC and the NCP, are they're not at war, they're not exactly friendly either. So the outpost might have, I don't know, half a dozen soldiers or something in some remote area, and on the main roads they maybe have a couple of dozen soldiers or something. Like they wouldn't they wouldn't be like the North Korea South Korea border, but they might be more like the Soviet Union to rest of Europe kind of border. Like there would be guards there. So some of the NCP soldiers open fire, but they're killed by the mob. Coxswain asks for opinions on what just happened. Erica points out that the security forces for the NCP soldiers, senators that were killed, acted pretty much like this. So in the first book, Civil War controls people, but he controls them directly. So he's kind of manipulating people to do what he wants. And the zombies in this are more like a virus, or like zombie PCs, really. They're kind of pre-programmed to do a set routine of small things. So Coxswain says that Civil War would have to be controlling 1,000 people. Erica shakes her head and says there's a pattern for the communications blackout in the RCC. The entire country has gone down. So Erica is probably the smartest person in these books. She tends to figure all these things out well before the others do. And she's a bit socially awkward, but she's incredibly smart. So she'd have figured out that, okay, the RCC stock exchange went down, and then the communications with this went down, and this kind of stuff went down. So she'd already have figured out that it's not a few thousand people, it's an entire country. Chris says that Civil War couldn't have planned out a coordinated attack involving billions of RCC citizens. Erica said he could just give them a simple command: go west and destroy, which is essentially what he has done. Coxswain tells Chris and Erica to come up with a way to reverse Civil War's commands to those citizens. Erica says the only way to do it is to get their hands on some RCC collars. So that's how the NCP have implants in your head to access the internet, and the RCC have the same implants, but they have like a collar, not like a heavy collar, but like a little thing, like a choker or something, that just a thin little thing around your neck that is interfacing with the internet, and that's the way you can talk to it. Coxswain says that they've got it. He'll commandeer a helicopter and they can fly to the border. Chris and Eric are in a helicopter with tactical SWAT guys. They're not big fans of the hackers. So in the first book they were robbing stuff and cops got injured and maybe even killed. So yeah, the other cops might not be big fans of them. It was Civil War's fault, but still, no smoke without fire thing sometimes happens. I see hundreds of RCC citizens walking west, breaking into houses and attacking people in the street. Chris radios back to Coxswain and says the Prime Minister needs to make an announcement for people to evacuate west ahead of the mob. Coxswain says he's already on it. They fly to the border, capture a lone woman who's coming over the border, and take off her collar. Instantly she revives or recovers. They take her to the helicopter. They talk to the woman, and she says she's been walking since the day before. She was aware of her body walking but couldn't control it. The RCC citizens are being controlled through their collars. Once the collars are removed, they're basically normal. But they say, well, we can't, like, there's over 1 billion people coming our way. We can't take off everyone's collar individually. The Prime Minister and the ICC and a bunch of other people are uncontrolled by the collars because they had extra security. So Chris and Erica say they're going to try and crack in. They find out that it's a virus that's closed. There's no way to get in. Only Civil War can get in to update his virus. The zombies have reached Warsaw. Hordes of people are approaching the NCP. He says it needs to be some way to stop it. Riot police and the army are dealing with the civilians, but there are too many to deal with. Then they start using CS and tear gas. So Dave Higgins actually came up with this in the brainstorming group, that while their minds aren't in control of their bodies still need to function. If their nerve endings are on fire, they can't do anything, or if they can't see, they can't do anything. So the army and riot police are taking care of all the RCC citizens, taking off their collars. Then he says that's not all, and shows the RCC army coming in close formation. So that's the first sign that the RCC soldiers aren't going to act like the citizens. The citizens are just coming in and hacking with shovels and stuff, whereas the soldiers are actually moving properly like that. I'm just going to check. Someone sent me a message. No. Just going to check the YouTube channel in case someone's talking to me. My phone is blinking. No, nothing. Okay, never mind. So, they changed the GPS. The zombies turn around and start walking the other way because they think west is east and east is west. But after a few hours, they march west again. So they work out that Civil War is updating stuff. He's working at something. So if the people are being controlled, then they can just take out the communications towers, communications arrays, whatever I come up with. She also says that they should be looking at large data centers in the RCC because Civil War needs resources to talk to that many people at the same time. So he's an AI, so the more processing power he gets, the smarter he is, and the more he can talk to people. So they work out what data centers are big enough for Civil War to use, and there are dozens. So the NCP sends in bombers and bombs the crap out of all the data centers available. There are 3 left. All of them are underground or protected. So the NCP take down the whole internet to try to stop the AI getting further. So they've essentially knocked down their own internet. It's disappeared. The RCC army reaches the NCP and they attack anyone in a uniform. So they start kind of behaving not so much like a coordinated attack as like soldiers on the ground just moving from one target to the next. So the NCP change out to the uniforms and just start going after the RCC soldiers in civilian clothes, and the RCC soldiers don't fire back. So Erica works out that so they're wondering then how the communications are working. How can Civil War be updating them if the communications are completely down? And Erica works out it's going peer to peer. So each caller is then communicating to the next caller, and so on. Again, like a virus. So then data centers. So then they go after the data centers because they need to stop Civil War. It can't be attacked from the air. They need to go in and fight their way underground. Coxswain says that Erica and Chris will have to go to help with the hacking. That's weak at the moment. That needs to be improved. There needs to be a reason why they'll have to go into the action, because it's a first-person book, so Chris has to go places that are interesting. Otherwise, we're going to have a book where Chris sits in an office. So there needs to be a reason for him to go in there, but I haven't come up with one yet. Help with the hacking is kind of weak. They go in with a bunch of soldiers. A data center is heavily guarded. They make their way to the server room, shut it down. They emerge to tell Coxswain, but he says the RCC citizens are still attacking. So they go to the headquarters, get an update on the fighting. RCC is in chaos. Yeah, I don't know. This is kind of stupid, probably. There's a second hidden base in a hollowed-out volcano. Okay, really, that's too silly for this book. So some of my other books, my Bitter End series can be very silly at times. So a hollowed-out volcano would be fine there, but this is kind of stupid for the Shiny series. But there's another server farm. Tech is old. Chris and Erica aren't experts in it. They need Haley. So the US has fallen way behind in terms of technology, which is what happens when you go ultra-religious, ultra-conservative. When you don't believe in science, then your civilization stops moving forward. So, for instance, the Middle East was the most advanced in the world for hundreds of years, about 1,000 years ago. And then they went ultra-religious, and they've stopped since then. So before, like 1,000 years ago, people used to go to the Middle East to find out about science and to learning and stuff like that. And then the rise of religion then meant that it stopped. Or the other thing, I mean, the Dark Ages for Christianity, when all of the ultra-religious Christianity stuff was happening, it's called the Dark Ages for a reason. It was terrible. All technology and science and progress stopped because people thought you'd have to burn women as a witch if they're intelligent and stuff like that. So the US essentially at the moment is at risk of doing the same thing. So the US would be probably considered one of the forefront countries at the moment in terms of science and technology and stuff, but they're going through such an ultra-conservative religious movement at the moment that they're going to just stop, and everyone else is going to overtake them, provided they don't bomb us all. So, so they need Haley because she's American, so she's used to old tech. So Haley and Max say they've come up with new hacks, and the hacks affect the individual sending it instead of the other way around. And Haley and Max show Chris and Erica how. I'm wondering if I could kind of get it in earlier, because this is the new way of hacking, is that before they were hacking the other person to make themselves invisible, and now they're hacking themselves so that, yeah, I'm not sure, because the other thing is I'm thinking of writing, there's going to be a third book. This is essentially going to end up a trilogy. And this is kind of an idea that will work perfectly for the next book, which is probably going to be called Shiny Old Glory, which is where they go into the US. So in the US they can't hack old computers. Like, they don't have implants in the US, so they can't hack people there. So I may take this idea out and use it in the next book because, yeah, it might be over-egging the story again. So I go in the second base with a load of soldiers who are getting wiped out. Go in alone, find the server room, stop Civil War signal. Take out the comms to the communication center where Civil War is hiding, and he uses the collar to escape. Oh, I see. So he's using peer-to-peer, like the zombies' collars, but not all the zombies make it away. So he only has part of his brain that moves to the next place, leaving him insane and incomplete. The other part of his brain makes it somewhere else and thinks it's Civil War II. So the small part is trying to continue the war in the original way. They get out. Coxswain says it isn't helping. They deploy EMPs in NCP cities to stop the zombie. It's wiping out NCP infrastructure. They talk to Felicity and Daryl, find out there's a third base hidden under a city. The third base is protected by children, so they can't shoot their way in. They come up with a collar that pretends like they're under control while they still retain control. I was thinking about this earlier. And then use that to pretend they're zombies to sneak inside, go for the server room, make it inside, disable the signal, citizens keep attacking. Citizens are now attacking anything not on their network. Using the tech they come up with for the collars, they come up with darts that give the subjects back control of their own minds if shot in the head. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I like the idea of darts that gives the temporary control back to the people. Like maybe taser darts. Like you shoot them and there's a short electrical burst which interferes with the collar. And if you're broadcasting to all of the zombies, I'm going to write this down. So the RCC citizens are aware of what's happening, they just can't control themselves. So if the signal broke for a second, they could rip off the collar. So tell them, take off the collar when the signal breaks. And then they fight the RCC and win, but both countries are in pieces. And the RCC and NCP declare war on the US for their transgressions. It's going to be a third world war. So that's a pretty major setup for the third book then. So the next thing, so that I've just read through the whole plot, so I kind of know where things are going, more or less. So I'm going to go to, okay. I'm going to go over here to my 7-act structure, and I'll share it with you in a second. I'm just deleting some old rubbish that was in it. So, let's see. So if I unshare that, and then share 7-act structure. So, if you're not aware of the 7-act structure, essentially it's major events throughout the book. So where is the story going, for instance? Civil War is insane and driven of the CC and NCP. So what you try and do is come up with the final point first and then work your way back, because then you kind of have the best possible ending. Endings are kind of important. Chris, by the end of the book, so Chris is determined to end civil war and the government that gave rise to him. So Chris already in the first book, Civil War, went after his mother and kidnapped his mother. So he's pretty motivated to stop civil war already. Erica. Let's skip over Erica for a second. Haley, willing to return to the US to end it. Max. So, yeah, I'm wondering if I'm going to kill off a character, actually. So, yeah, so the question is, if the motivation to go to the US in the third book is strong enough that they'll all immediately go and do it, because they're all, Chris and Eric have trained as cops now, but they're only trainees. So if there's an all-out war between the US and the rest of the world, I don't know whether a few trainee cops would be sent in, even as good at hacking as they are, whether they'd be sent in on a mission undercover in the US. Also, I like the idea of them leaving the cops and going in on their own. As well, from the first book, so no one major dies in the first book, no matter what happens. So I'm guessing it might be a bit of a shock if someone died in this. Yeah. I'm trying to work out whether... So I don't want to kill someone for the sake of killing them. That's just stupid. But a character's death, if it serves multiple purposes, might be worth it. I'm going to say, okay, Max is dead. Okay, that's... If you really love Max, apologies. He's only dead so far, and the outline might all change. He might survive. Come on, Max, you can do it. The zombie virus is defeated. So, zombie virus is defeated, but the NCP and RCC are in ruins. Erica... Erica's super smart. So I'm wondering if there's a way to undercut her at the end of the book. So she's made the greatest mistake ever made, getting Max killed and turning Civil War into a psychopathic killer out of control. So Civil War gets split up from our other outline. So maybe when he's split, the constraints that the US had put on him, because they're not going to just release an AI that could kill everyone, the constraints that they put on him maybe are eliminated. So he can now kill all humans. So, start with Max. So you then go to the beginning, and the beginning is the opposite state, if you can, from the end. So Max is on top of the world. On top of the world, in love with Haley, and never been happier. Zombie virus is locked down tight and impossible to break. Civil War is so if he's insane, driven out of the RCC, the opposite of B is confident in control and ready to complete his mission. Chris So he wants to end civil war and the government to get rid of them. So then he wants to forget about Shiny New Swindle and get on with COP. Erica. Being promoted to team leader and is the one everyone turns to for advice. Haley. Haley is happy with Max and trying to forget the US and the events of her youth. So when Haley was in the US, this is backstory that's not in the actual book, Shiny New Swindle, but she was abused verbally and physically and sexually because she was attractive and very smart. She was born to a very poor family, and in the US, you couldn't say anything about your boss. Like, your boss is untouchable, which is an extension really of what happens today. Like, bankers don't go to jail, but someone who steals $10 goes to jail. So in the future, no matter what the boss does, he's not going to go to prison, so he can rape Haley, and it's just part of the course. He's the boss. He's allowed to do whatever he wants. Essentially like nobles were back in the Middle Ages. So she's been very tough since then. Like, her reaction to that was to become like stone, like nothing could touch her. So then falling in love with Max in the first book has kind of broken that. But she wouldn't want to go back to the US ever. She'd want to just kind of move on and forget it. So the midpoint. The midpoint to Civil War, becoming insane, being driven out of the RCC and NCP would be so he's reduced to a single data center with nowhere to go. He rallies zombies around him to guard against him and guard him and provide a network. So really he's the source of his own destruction. Chris, the midpoint. So going from wanting to forget about the US and just get on with being a cop to wanting to end the US government and civil war, the midpoint would be seeing the devastation the US is doing to the NCP and all the people they're killing and stuff like that. Erica's midpoint. So if she's going to go from being the source of all advice to making a major mistake, then she needs to get overconfident. So it's kind of the source of her destruction. If she believes she always has the right answer and overrides all other advice. So Haley needs to go from happiness to willing to return to the US to end it. The midpoint there would be her revealing, I think, what happened in the US. I don't know. It's getting kind of serious now. Like the first book is lighthearted, I would say. Like there's some serious moments, but it's fairly lighthearted. I don't want to shift the tone too dark either. So Max, the midpoint from being happy to being dead, would be, so Max is physically disabled. So Max believing he can do anything despite his disability, not taking into account his limitations. Or being brave despite his disability is better. I like that better actually. I'm going to delete that other stuff. So Max being brave despite his disability and going beyond his limitations. So Max needs a cane to walk. Like he's not severely disabled, but he needs a cane to walk, and he moves slowly. So in the first book he has a hack which makes him incredibly, or seem incredibly powerful to whoever he's punching. So even though he's quite weak, he's quite strong using his hack. But his hack is now gone, so he's not strong anymore. I'm actually thinking, rather than killing Max, that I might put him in the hospital in a worse state than he had been before. That's almost more devastating than killing him, and less cliched. So yeah, instead of being dead, he's and Max as well. I haven't specified what illness he has, and the reason for that is that I didn't want to actually get that specific. Like there was no reason. So Chris and Max and Haley and Eric are all friends, and there's no reason you don't go up to your friend who's physically disabled and go, "So how about that multiple sclerosis, eh?" That's, you don't say that. So there's no natural way to put it in. And since they're close friends, like Chris wouldn't even consider thinking about Max's injury or Max's illnesses like that. Like he'd just consider him a person, he'd consider his personality, not his disability. So I don't mention what illness he has in the first book, and I kind of don't want to. Like I don't want to make that the issue. I just want him to be physically disabled, but otherwise he's a normal person and he's trying his best to help his friends and be heroic and that kind of thing. So yeah, so when he goes in the hospital, I don't know, I might have to narrow it down, but at the moment I've had a comment back saying you should explain what illness Max has, and I just don't want to. I just think it should be a non-issue. Like his disability doesn't define him, so yeah, maybe I'm being silly and it should be answered, but I kind of don't want it to be in the book in a way. Zombie virus. So at the start, it's locked down tight and impossible to break. So the midpoint there would be it's communications go down, it has to go peer-to-peer, so it's not exactly locked down tight anymore. So the next thing is the plot turn 1. Character's world changes. So he's confident, in control, and ready to complete his mission. Let's see. So Civil War sends zombies against the NCP. So that's the first bit of conflict. Something goes wrong. The NCP all the data. And NCP bombs all the data centers and get rid of the network. The NCP attacks Civil War's data center. He can't get out whole. So removal of part of him has removed his restrictions. I'm not sure what AI insanity would be like, actually. We'll see. Okay, so Chris wants to forget about Shiny New Swindle and get on with being a cop. So some of these are going to be duplicates just because the major events will affect more than one person. RCC zombies attack. They work out at Civil War, which would mean that Chris would have to get involved. So the RCC zombies have reached the heart of the NCP. So that's things going very wrong. Oh, they attack the police HQ. It'll be good then because Chris loses his base. They lose contact with Coxswain on their way to the final data center. So they're kind of out on a limb. For Erica, introduce the conflict, the character's world changes. Well, that's the RCC zombies attack again. Something goes wrong. Erica's the only one with a plan to defeat Civil War, but she needs to be there. Erica's, as I said, shy. She's also overweight. She's not a very physical person. So putting her in the middle of the action would be something going wrong for her. Apply more pressure so the situation seems... Oh, I just thought of something. Oh, I just thought of something really good. The RCC embassy people The RCC has an embassy, obviously, in the capital of the NCP. So they turn up acting normal and looking for Erica, because Civil War knows that she and Chris are the major threats against his plans. So he would send a special attack against her and against Chris. So that's pretty good, I think. Apply more pressure so the situation seems hopeless. The bad guys seem to win. Bad guys seem to win. So what would be the bad guys seeming to win for Erica? They can wipe out her hometown, I guess. Wipe out Erica's hometown and her parents are missing. So she needs to lose something to enable the resolution. Wipe center, capture the zombies. Okay, Haley. Introduce the conflict. The character's word changes. Okay, the RCC zombies attacking is not her turning point because she would leave. Potentially. Like she nearly left in the first book and then she came back. In the second book, she would ask Chris and Erica to leave and they wouldn't. So, Max staying would be the only thing really to keep her there. Something goes wrong. Data Center's legacy, she needs to help. Bad guys seem to win. US have landed in the RCC moving across China. As you can see, like as I'm filling this in, there's a lot of stuff here that wasn't in the initial Snowflake outline, and that's because trying to come up with things that go wrong gives you more things going wrong and more conflict in the story. So I'm trying to invent things for each character that can go wrong, which is prompting me to come up with more ideas. Not necessarily that they'll all get used, but at least there'll be more ideas there. So, obtain, lose, the final thing to enable the resolution. So, Max is gravely injured and Haley wants revenge. So she doesn't necessarily want revenge for herself for what they did when she was younger, but she wants revenge now because they've hurt her lover. Max. Introduce the conflict. Character's world changes. So Chris and Erica come to ask for help. That would change his world because he's very loyal. Something goes wrong, forcing the characters into action. Chris and Eric are in trouble, trapped. Max needs to help them. The other thing to mention is that I'm not necessarily trying to work out where all these events are going yet. They don't necessarily all make sense in the one story. I'm just coming up with ideas. Max being brave despite his disability and going beyond his limitations. The bad guys appear to win. I'm not sure what that is yet, but I'm just putting something in there for now. And the last one's easy enough. Let's see. Zombie virus. Activated. To combat the virus. Communication go down. It has to go peer to peer. Bad guys seem to win. Okay, so that's all of that stuff. Now we have to put it all in order. Just check, yeah, everything's still up. No one watching me anymore. I'm probably bored everyone to death. And Little Lock S said he or she is going to watch. Hey, Black. And let's see if there's any YouTube comments. I don't think so. Nope, nothing. Okay, we'll keep going. So let's see. So now we're going to put it all in order. So the way we do that is we start with the first one and we go to the second sheet just here and paste it in and go to the next one. And as we do them, just mark them. Oh, jeez. Using pronouns doesn't work because when I then go to paste them in, I won't see who is who. So I need to just put in who's saying things. So him and he need to become initials. America work out at Civil War. Chris sees the devastation. Erica at the end. Okay, Haley. Mex. So, okay, now we've got the pronoun issue sorted. So, oops. Okay, that doesn't work for some reason. I don't know what's going on. So I'm just taking everyone's starting point pretty much because that's usually just what's happening at the start of the book, so it's not in any order really. Just going to put the virus beside Civil War, it's just easier. Okay, that's the starting. So, the first thing, or the next thing that happens is the virus is activated. And SOAR sends the zombies against the NCP. That's the first move. Next is the RCC zombies attack. Which is the same for Eric and Chris. Chris and Erica work out in Civil War. That happens pretty early. And RCC embassy people turning up would be early too. NCP bombs all the data centers and gets rid of the network. That'd be an early move. NCP have ways to combat the virus. So what I mentioned about CS gas and things like that. Chris sees the devastation the US is doing to the NCP. Could be right about there. Then put the communications thing. So I'm going to add another point in that isn't there. Because we needed a little bit of a bridge. So Civil War is reduced to a single data center. Oops, we should do this one first. I'm actually going to reverse these around just because it explains what's happening more in this order. Okay. Chris believes she always has the right answer and overrides all other advice. Eric, I mean, actually, we could put that in. Actually, to have Erica or Haley talk about her past earlier. So then we put in Haley's hometown being attacked first, and then she believes she has the right answers. Then she's responsible. Okay. That's Max's whole arc in a short period of time there. I want to make Erica, or no, sorry, Haley, annoyed. So that will actually put her in the attack on the last compound as well. So then, so war is reduced to a single data center. So you can't get out whole. And the zombies attack the heart of the NCP. And Chris and co lose contact with Coxswain. Erica thinks she knows what needs to be done. I'll kill these injured. Okay. Getting there slowly. that. I'm kind of getting the feeling that this is going to end on a bit of a cliffhanger that I need to go straight into writing the next book to kind of end the story, because otherwise, if I leave it a year or two, people might get a little bit pissed off. So let's see, that's the last one. So the next thing I do is I'm going to take all of these and put them back in the Scrivener document. Copy that there, and go to Snowflake here, patch and paste and match style. So that's the 7-act structure done. Let's save that. So next thing we do is we need to combine the two of these in the Scrivener document. So this is where it gets a little bit messy. So I've got the snowflake and I got the outline, and now I'm going to combine them by slapping them together into a single document that'll just be a big mess. But it'll kind of approximately have things in the right order. So Daryl and Felicity barely appear over here. I'm wondering if we change that a little bit. Well, I'm going to copy it out first. Daryl and Felicity have gone to the south of France. Just getting them out of the way because it may seem strange, but the fewer characters, the better the book, in my opinion. So, for instance, I'm reading Good Omens at the moment, a Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman book, and it's very, very good, but it's got too many characters, in my opinion. The fewer characters means that you have a closer connection to the few characters that are there, which I think is better. But yeah, just an opinion. Chris wants to forget about the SNS. Erica's team leader. So the virus hasn't been activated yet over here. So Erica comes down, and she's now his team leader. So that makes sense. Virus is activated. So there'll be reports and blah blah blah. That actually needs to reverse a little. Chris and Erica work out it's a war. I'm actually going to do something a little different. Going to put the stuff here in bold just to differentiate it. Not because it's more important, but just so I can see the difference. RCC zombies attack. So So there we get a bit of action in the middle of that. There's a lot of talking, so we get some action. Blah 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 blah. Trying to work out what the data center thing is. There. So that's a huge chunk between those 2 points. As I say, these are hopefully in chronological order. NCP take down the whole internet stuff, so that was here somewhere. No, actually, it's up here. Okay. And blah blah blah. Okay. So that's that combined. So let's see. Let me just check that. Word totals: 2,551 words. Some of that was copy paste, but considering the amount of investment of time, I kind of justify that, because in other places, like in editing, I'm losing words where I'm actually doing work, and the whole point is to track the amount of work anyway. So shiny iron curtain 2551, isn't it? Yep. That's outlining 7-act structure. So that's the first task for today, done, which was to create a 7-act structure. I'm just going to archive the snowflake in the 7-act previous one. So that's something I can mark off on Asana. Done. So next one is the Bite of Revolt, which is probably going to become the Bite of Revolution. I've been thinking about it, and so the issue I had was that revolt means, so they all mean certain things. A rebellion, for instance, is unsuccessful. A revolution is successful, and a revolt can't be either. So I don't want to call it the Bite of Rebellion. That instantly says that it's unsuccessful, and I don't want to call it the Bite of Revolution. That tells you that it's successful. It's giving away the ending before you've even got there. So yeah, so but then the Bite of Revolt sounds like revulsion. It sounds like something's disgusting. I don't want to do that either. I don't want to say that the book is disgusting. That doesn't sound great. So I'm probably going to call it the Bite of Revolution instead. Let's see. So I'm just going to change it all in Asana. And the reason I'm changing it is because I'm a little... that's a bad thing to say, because OCD is a serious illness. I'm a little pedantic. It's a better thing to say, rather than saying I'm a little OCD. I'm a bit pedantic, so I want the title in Asana to say what it actually is, even though it makes absolutely zero difference to anything. The fact that the title is correct. So that's one task done for today. Second task, Bite of Revolution, write a first outline. So let's, I'll share the document for that. So I've already been working for about an hour and a half. My voice is actually going a little bit because I'm talking so much. But I've been working for an hour and a half, but it's outlining. Outlining is a lot less brain work for me, or at least, yeah, it's a lot easier brain work for me than writing a first draft. In a first draft, I'm trying to imagine every possible consequence. In my outlining method, I'm trying to come up with good ideas, but if I don't have one, I drop it. So in a first draft, it's kind of down to the wire. If I don't come up with an idea, then the book doesn't work. In an outline, if I don't come up with an idea, I can just say stuff happens and I'll fix it later, which is just my way of working. So this outline's a bit different. This is back to the snowflake method. So the snowflake method, you start with a line, a single sentence, and then you try and make a paragraph, and then you try and make 3 paragraphs, and so on. For this one, though, I kind of started with the first snowflake and then jumped, because this is the 4th book in my Bitter End series, and I already know all the characters, and I know the town, and I kind of had an idea of what was going to happen. So I'm trying to kind of jump ahead a bit. But then I ran into a wall. So I'm going to read through this. I might not read it out loud because I don't want to go completely hoarse. And then I'm going to see if I can continue it. I'll see if I can get past the wall this time, because I just came up against a block where I went, okay, I don't know what's going to happen now. If I can't get past the wall, I'm going to write stuff happens, and I'm going to keep going, because I need to get past this outline and get on to the next outline, which would be another 7-act structure, which I won't be doing today, I'll just be doing later. Okie doke, I'll read through it. Just read that bit about Gloria. Gloria is awesome. Bitter End, I might mention since it's vaguely related. It's my series where so I try and have very strong female characters. I hope I do at least. And um, Gloria is kind of she was a sub character. She was very barely in the first book. But now she's the only other guard apart from Osric from the start of the story. So I'm kind of building her up in this book a bit more. So Isabel and Tombert, who were the other guards, are now gone. They went back to Tombert's home and got married. Um, and Professor shows her a bunch of inventions. The people who like reading the Bitter End series love the Professor's inventions, so that has to be it's a kind of a fixture in every book. I have zero idea at this point what the inventions are going to be, so I have to come up with a bunch. So Caelan Taggart, who's the bad guy, is kind of rapey. Like he's not a very progressive guy when it comes to women's issues, women's rights. And the other thing to say is this series is kind of villains and bad guys and good guys. Um, it's more, I don't know, more straightforward, I guess, than like Hard Vacuum 2 that I'm working on is the bad guy in that. Well, there's multiple. The aliens, the xenomigrants, you could call bad guys, but they're just animals. They're not doing it because they're evil. They're doing it because they want to eat and produce more animals. It's like saying a lion is a bad guy. A lion's not a bad guy. A lion's just doing what it's made to do. Uh, but in Bitter End, there's more kind of mustache twirling bad guy kind of things. I try and come up with a reason for all of them being bad guys, but it's backstory. It doesn't really appear in the book itself. Oh, I misread that for a second. I thought it said her arm is cut off. I was like, Jesus Christ. She lost an arm? No, her arm is cut. So this is kind of like a Robin Hood kind of story. So the Duke, it's not King John, but the Duke is oppressing this small mining town called Bitter End, and Jenny and some of the others have now moved into the forest and are planning resistance, which is pretty much Robin Hood. And then I put in a bit about them building tunnels under the forest, underground places for them to hide. Okay, as Osric has been assigned to guard the taxman. Still no idea what happens next, so I'm going to snowflake it instead. So, so that's a bit more like a snowflake. So that's snowflake number 2. So obviously the first bit is massive. I'm not going to delete any of it and go back to reducing it because I already written a bunch there. I'm going to add a folder for my archive. I try and have an archive folder, so instead of deleting anything, I'm putting it in a different folder. Even if you delete things, Scrivener doesn't delete them, it just moves them to another folder anyway, but I just don't want to risk losing anything. So that's almost 2 hours. So I figure I need to get up and move around a bit so I don't completely collapse. So I'm going to write in this in the snowflake, and Get how many words it was. Oh, come on, Scrivener. I need to upgrade my computer. It's pretty damn slow now. 2071. Again, that was copy paste, but I don't mind double counting words in my outlining process because outlining is very slow anyway, and it's fine. So I double count words occasionally, that's okay. Which actually, after 2 hours, leaves me at 4,622, and that's about what I would have written if I was writing a first draft. So it's not bad as a metric. Anyway, as I said, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to go and relax for a little while, and then I will continue doing my snowflake outline of the Bytecode Revolution after that. And hopefully we'll get to a point where we actually have a more complete story. So I will see you later. Thanks for watching.